Let's do some unboxing on some Kukris. Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria. 'Tis the season to be jolly because I've got a box to open. That's right, another present for the channel, review material in here that's come to me directly from Kathmandu in Nepal, or certainly via Kathmandu. So it's come to me straight from Nepal to my door, no issues, nice and clean transaction, and it has come from Kailash Blades. So link below. Obviously, now I've been talking to Kailash Blades, in fact, for a few months, since, in fact, more than that, before COVID even struck. You know, it's been a crazy time, what can I say? With COVID and everything else going on in the world, it's taken a bit of time, but we've now got some Kukris here from Kailash Blades to look at. This is a unboxing, sneak preview, not even sneak preview, actually public preview, but this is a first impressions, first look, and full reviews will come a little bit further down the line. But given that they're here and I want to get them out, I thought I may as well film it for you guys. So I want to just repeat again, thanks very much to Andrew and all the guys at Kailash Blades for sending this through. I'm going to open these now and let's have a little look at what's inside. So here they are out of the box. I haven't unwrapped them yet, but before I do, I just want to say, now obviously those of you who are regular viewers on this channel will know that I have a collection of antique and vintage, so we say up to World War II, and in fact beyond World War II, old Nepalese kukris, most famously used by the Gurkhas, but in fact used by everybody in Nepal, and used by lots of people in the British Army and the Indian Army, used in India as well, and all over the place. There's people all over the world who really appreciate the kukri. Now, Kailash Blades are a very interesting company because they are based in Nepal. They are using Nepalese craftsmen who are making kukris, and one of the things that's interesting about Kailash Blades is they are trying to get back closer to older styles of manufacturing and statistics, should we say, on the kukris that they're making. And they don't only make kukris, they also make swords and custom knives and all kinds of, you know, Bowie knives, all kinds of stuff. So go and check out their website and have a look at some of the amazing things that they make. These are three traditional old style kukris, and as I say, one of the great things about Kailash Blades, and one of the reasons I was talking to them in the first place, was because they are looking at the antiques like I do, and they are trying to get back to some of the statistics and getting more similar to the old ones that we find and collect, the antique ones. But these are modern made, so you can buy them kind of off the shelf or to order, and of course you can go out and use them in sort of rough use, in field use, any kind of use you want to use them to, without worrying about messing up the old ones, the old antiques and stuff, which should be looked after and preserved for future generations. So let's unwrap these and see what's inside. Just found some nice business cards inside, so there we go. But again, the link to their website is below, and Facebook page as well is below. But very nice. Let's carry on unwrapping. So before we look at the three kukris that I've just unwrapped, I want to just say that one of the great things with dealing with Kailash is they actually send you pictures of your knife, kukri, whatever you're having made from them as it goes along. So you actually get to see some of the manufacturing process, and that certainly for me, and I imagine for lots of you out there, that is an absolutely fantastic thing. You don't normally get to see your lovely knife or kukri or sword before it's a finished object. You just see the finished object. So actually seeing it in its sort of earlier stages of its manufacturing, of kind of rough forged state, and then the grinding of the blades, and then when the handles are fitted, the hilts are fitted, and the manufacturing of the sheaths or scabbards, it's fantastic to be able to see that. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing that as well, and that is something that's really, really cool about Kailash Blades. So without further waffle, let's actually have a look at these kukris. So first up, I've got what they call the Mark I. So this is based and inspired on a type of kukri that has been around, in fact, since the end of the 19th century, but really principally World War I. Now, if I just unsheath it, so taking my fingers away from the front edge, it's quite stiff in the sheath at the moment, so I'm pushing towards the back. You can see it has a beautiful blade. As I say, there are going to be full reviews of these in due course. There's the Kailash Blades emblem on that side. You've got the nice decorative little Cho down there with the sun. I think that's a sun emblem. The sun being the emblem of Nepal. I assume that's what that's for. With a typical for kind of World War I era style blade, I actually went with the horn grip option. If I just put the sheath down for a second, and you'll see that the horn of this is absolutely beautiful. Really, really nice. Look at that. Really beautifully done. You can see that this is secured via a nut at the end of the tang. There are no lateral rivets or nuts and bolts or anything going through the side there. So it's got a through tang going through to a nut at the end of there. The bolster in this case is made of steel. Okay, and it's very closely fitted, but as I say, full review coming in due course. It feels lovely. It's got distal taper. I will, again in the full review, I'll get my calipers out, but I can see that it's got distal taper along the blade. I can also see that it is slightly hollow ground in this section of the blade, and then you've got this typical kind of World War I era fuller up the back here. One thing that I do notice straight off is that the hilt or grip is longer than I am used to on the old ones. Now admittedly that once you get into World War I and World War II, the hilts do get a bit longer, probably as partially of kind of Western military influence, but this is quite a long grip. It doesn't particularly bother me. It's still got the rib in the middle I've spoken so much about in previous videos that locks your hand in there. So my hand locks in here, but it does leave a finger's width extra at the pommel end and a finger's width extra at the bolster or guard, if you want to call it that. End. So the grip is longer than it needs to be, I would say, and that does change slightly the feeling in the hand. But that being said, it feels incredibly solid, incredibly well made. It's beautifully finished. It's got very nice polish on it as well. The edge is sharpish. It certainly could be sharper, but I can do that. It comes to a fine edge. There's no secondary bevel to speak of. But it could do with a little bit of extra sharpening, but a beautiful thing. And just briefly on the sheaths or scabbards, I've actually got two versions. I've got a modern kind of easy release 2 push stud version, which is a completely modern design but quite popular for field use, and then I've got the traditional sort of World War I era or late 19th century era style for going onto a Sam Browne belt, actually, with these nice push studs on here. The leather seems good quality, the scabbard's beautifully made. It actually looks very similar to the antique examples that I'm familiar with, but this one's new, which is nice because it's not as fragile as some of the antiques are. So that's beautiful. Now let's look at the next pair, and they are a pair. So these are the so-called Saliani type. I'm sure my pronunciation is terrible there, and these vary only in one specific detail, but it's quite an important detail. Now I'm not sure which is which. There we go. This is the standard one. So this is the standard one that we were originally talking about. Now this is a earlier style, I would say anyway, earlier style, almost handsheet shaped style of kukri. And this is narrower, more curved and longer and lighter. So this feels less like a tool and more like a weapon. This is really quite a quick and nimble thing. Even more so because this is 5mm, I happen to know, at the base of the blade. Now the reason I've got two of them, I'll talk about the sheaths in a second, the reason I've got two of them here is that the second example here is thicker at the base. Now we had some discussion about this, and it is my opinion, based on looking at original kukris, that by and large, if I look at the antique kukris I've got, I won't say that there aren't any antique ones which are 5mm at the base. I'm sure that there definitely are, but of the examples that I own, particularly of the earlier ones, they vary between about 7mm and 12mm at the base, and then they have distal taper as you go up the blade. So a little bit like a sword, but in fact even thicker at the base than some swords are. So what this version below is a version with a thicker base. I think it's about 8mm at the base, and then with distal taper going down the blade. So this is a more complicated build than this one, and it has to be said it's a little bit heavier, okay? But putting that in context for a second, these are both still light kukris. It's just that this one is super light and this one is quite light. Okay, now which of these do I prefer? Without a shadow of a doubt, I prefer the one with the thicker base and more distal taper. So if you want one of those, you have to talk to Kailash Blades directly about it, because I think it is more difficult for them to make these. But I think that you'll be happy with the end result for going for that. That being said, this is still a perfectly functional and lovely kukri, and as I say, there almost certainly are original examples which are 5mm only at the base, particularly the Hanshi type. But that being said, I just don't happen to own any or have measured any that are that thin. But it's a perfectly functional, I mean 5mm is still as thick at the base as some swords are. So in a blade this long, it's still functionally perfectly thick, thick enough for a functioning blade of this size. And man, this thing is nimble. It's super quick, this thing. It can go anywhere. Now you'll also notice this overall very curved shape. And in fact, just to put the thinner one down for a second, with this overall curved shape, which is something we find particularly in kukris that go back into the 18th century. Normally we're looking at 19th and 20th century kukris, but if you go back to the 18th century, very often kukris have this almost banana-like curve right the way through the grip and the blade forwards, and not so much belly. If we look at the later one, kukris are famous for having this kind of belly, which you certainly do find on early kukris as well. But if we go back into the 18th century and earlier, then kukris sometimes don't have, although they sometimes do, they sometimes don't have as much belly and are more slender and therefore nimbler fighting weapons. And this feels absolutely fantastic. As I say, I'll do a full review of this. You can see that it's got hollow ground section up here, which is also decorated with engraved or incised lines. It's still got oil on the blade, incidentally. These are all heavily oiled for shipping purposes. And it's got a beautiful dark wood, I think probably rosewood grip with carved decoration around here. That's very common. That mid-rib there that you lock between your upper two fingers and your lower two fingers, locks it in there, means that the hand can't travel upwards if you were stabbing with it or in any other kind of way. Very much a fighting weapon, this, less of a tool, more of a weapon. Beautiful thing. And just briefly in terms of the sheaths, again, these are very similar to 19th century sheaths that I actually own in my collection. Beautifully made, lovely stitching, very tidy seam on the back. But full reviews of these in due course. So thanks again very much to, let's grab both examples, to Kailash Blades for sending these awesome kukris, and full reviews and testing in due course. Check out the link below to their website and you can go and drool over some of the beautiful things that they make. And I hope that you'll be back when I do the full reviews of these. Thanks for watching and take care. See you soon. Cheers.